Consumer habits are changing fast. Really captures real-time behavior insights by polling targeted audiences on social media, where they show up as their most authentic selves. Get the clarity you need to drive more foot traffic and marketing buzz. Visit askbrilli.com. That's AskBrilli.com to learn more.
Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision-makers. This week, I'm talking with Dave Paul, the co-founder of Pluckers Wing Bar, a beloved sports bar concept in Texas with 32 locations in the Lone Star State. Pluckers is celebrating its 30th anniversary later this year, and it's seen plenty of change in the chicken category as competitors like Raising Cane's, Chick-fil-A, and Wingstop have come to dominate the space. But Dave and his business partners are happy with their slow pace of growth as they double down on a high-quality, experience-driven offering. And today they're seeing massive success with a paid loyalty program and a new value deal during the lunch day part. Dave joined the podcast to talk about how Pluckers is generating value with its premium and experience and how they've managed to secure 300,000 loyalty members, even with a monthly fee. In this interview, you will learn more about why chicken is not the key differentiator in the chicken category, why one of the best R&D strategies is listening to your guests, and why your value offerings should accommodate both new and loyal guests. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to Takeaway on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also leave your feedback on those platforms. A little bit of love there goes a long way in getting new listeners. You can also follow me on TikTok, where I will be sharing special insights from this show, but also other exclusive content, including behind-the-scenes looks at my industry travels and experiences. Go follow me at Takeaway Sam. That's at Takeaway Sam. Jumping now into my interview with Pluckers Wing Bar co-founder Dave Paul. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 6 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Dave Paul, the co-founder of Pluckers Wing Bar. Dave, thanks for taking some time today.
All right, appreciate it, Sam.
All right, so Dave, this is a story that's 30 years in the making, as I understand it, and it goes back to your college days. Tell me about Pluckers and our audience, anybody who's not maybe been down to Texas to check out one of your locations. What's the deal with this brand? What's the story?
So I grew up in Atlanta. In Atlanta, there's a wing place on every corner. And my business partners, Mark and Sean, grew up in New Orleans, where there really weren't that many wings, actually. And Mark and I were freshmen at the University of Texas in 1991. And we wanted to order some wings for delivery, which was part of my high school life, was getting wings 3 times a week. And we couldn't really find anything in Austin, which was very surprising to us. And then we started looking around the state in Dallas and Houston, and there weren't really any wings there either. So we sort of got the idea that let's kind of work on this for our 4 years of college and open up our own wing place. And we actually opened up our first restaurant 2 weeks after we graduated college.
Wow. That's amazing. And was it an instant success?
Well, we sold out of chicken the first day, so that was a success on one hand. But then with looking back on it with the experience, maybe we just didn't order enough chicken. We were 22-year-old guys who didn't know anything about management or marketing or operations, and we got a very quick lesson. I think we started off with the idea that Mark would work 8 hours a day and I'd work 8 hours a day because we were open from 11 in the morning till 2 at night, and it turned into getting there pretty much at 9 in the morning, leaving at 5 in the morning, 7 days a week for about 2 years before then we realized we better learn how to teach some managers how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys have restaurant experience? Like, what kind of experience were you pulling from and getting this brand off the ground?
I was a delivery driver at some wing restaurants in Atlanta, and I'd done some Chinese food. And Mark, I think, was a delivery driver at Domino's, and we both had worked a little bit in kitchens, and we both liked cooking more than we'd ever been cooks. So our restaurant experience was fairly limited. But the marketing background, I think, by being delivery drivers really taught us a lot about, initially Pluckers was a delivery brand more than a dine-in brand, which we've transitioned to where it's no delivery except through third-party delivery. But I mean, it really gave us a good experience to know what it's like to be the driver, what's it like to be the customer when the food's running late. It gave us a lot more than I think we realized at the time. It just seemed like a job in high school, but it really translated to a good understanding of the market that we were going to be in and who our customer was.
And back then, I mean, Austin today, of course, is one of the most exciting food scenes in America, massive city that's growing very quickly. I imagine the food scene was quite a bit different at that point in time. So your response locally, I mean, were you guys one of the only wing joints in town?
Yeah, I mean, the first spot was only 1,300 feet. We served mostly the kids at University of Texas and some hospitals and businesses around. But, there really wasn't great food in Austin. I actually looked more recently. I was like, what was the 1998 Austin Chronicle best of food list? And I don't think a single one of those restaurants still exists. So, for us, I think it was more the idea of getting great food late night and throughout the day to college kids, more than like what we've become today, which is we're much more of a family brand. We transitioned away from colleges and universities, and we want to be just great food more than a sports bar, which is also part of who we are. We want people to dine in any time of day because the food's great. So the concept's really evolved over the last 30 years.
Yeah, tell me about that evolution, because to go from sort of a delivery-only deal to sports bar, that's a big evolution, but you had 30 years to kind of get there. Walk me through those decisions to evolve the brand in the ways that you have.
Yeah, I mean, initially we just were doing mostly takeout and delivery, and we had a couple TVs we put up because Mark and I wanted to watch the games because we're big sports fans. And then we realized people really liked watching those TVs and would stick around. And so then the next iteration, when plasma TVs came out, we were one of the first concepts with our second restaurant in Austin to have plasma TVs. And everybody's like, oh, wow, this is great. And people started watching the games, and it became more and more a thing of, it goes with wings anyway, sports, but we didn't have the budget on the first store to do things like that. But, over time, we've wanted to be like the preeminent sports bar with the best audiovisual possible. And although we're packed on Saturdays and Sundays during football season, we're also packed on Friday nights. So, we learned sports are kind of like the cherry on top for our concept versus a lot of concepts. That's their busiest days. Like we always say, Super Bowl is the least profitable day of the year for us because a lot of people want food takeout, and takeout costs are higher, and the quality of the food's probably not as great as takeout, and there's less people in the dining room.
So then, at that point in time too, the chicken business was quite a bit different when you guys started to what it is today. You've watched the chicken category just become something completely different. And importantly, chicken wings in particular have really taken off. Tell me about your point of view on chicken over the past 30 years and how that's maybe changed your decision on the direction of the business. Because, of course, now we have Wingstop and we have a lot of these other brands that have come up, certainly doing delivery. But then there's this new wave of Nashville hot chicken. Even the big guys like McDonald's sell more chicken than burgers even. It's such a big evolution. Maybe you guys saw this coming when you started Pluckers because you knew chicken was going to be a big deal. But how does that, watching what's happened with chicken, affect your decision-making as you've grown this business?
Yeah, I think in the wing category, Buffalo Wild Wings was probably the preeminent company at the time back when we started. But I grew up in Atlanta, like I mentioned, and Chick-fil-A was around the corner from my house, and at every shopping mall at the time was like Chick-fil-A's big thing. And so I grew up eating Chick-fil-A. And so I didn't realize living in Atlanta as a kid that was going to become the brand it became. And then we opened a Pluckers in 1998, I believe, in Baton Rouge. And Todd Graves had just opened up Raising Cane's there. So, between Pluckers and our success, which has been, we're at 32 stores and more of a casual dining atmosphere. I've also been able to watch Chick-fil-A be successful and Raising Cane's. And then, the Nashville hot chicken thing is pretty amazing. I'm actually headed to Nashville next week and try to stop by all the chicken joints because I just love eating chicken. But I think a lot of people perceive it as healthier than beef. I think when we were kids, I'm Gen X, there was a lot of anti-beef ads. And so probably the parents started thinking that a fried chicken sandwich was healthier than beef. And I'm not necessarily sure it is, but I think that's a perception people still have to this day.
Yeah, it's amazing. We just got data from Technomic for 2024 performance. KFC is now the fourth largest chicken chain, which to me is so emblematic of where chicken has gone. Now you have Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, Raising Cane's, Wingstop's banging at the door of KFC. I fully expect Wingstop to be bigger than KFC next year. It's really amazing to see how far it's come. What about for your own sales? Because again, you've evolved out to the sports bar. Have you seen the draw become less the chicken wing, more to? I know you've even got burgers and stuff on the menu, or is it always chicken wings that are the main seller for you?
I think over time we have what we call our chicken tenders boneless wings. We made that decision about 20 years ago because I think most people had this idea in their head of a boneless wing as actually being a wing that you pull the bone out of and you get this meat. And people would give you these little nuggets. And that was kind of popular everywhere. And we're like, we're going to go the other way around. We're going to get 4-ounce chicken tenders to give you 4 in a basket. And, so you're basically getting a pound of chicken. And those were our boneless wings. But then with the success of like Chick-fil-A having their little nuggets, we actually have added boneless bites to the menu about 10 years ago, which are also very popular. So, I think wings and chicken tenders or some variation of those are the most important parts of our menu. I think more than anything, we're a sauce company more than a wing company. I mean, at its core, anybody can buy the same chicken wings we buy. I think it's the sauce. I think it's the people who are applying the sauce. I think it's the people serving the sauce that matter. So a long time ago, we kind of made the decision. We're really, although we don't say it so much publicly, we're really more of a sauce company than we are a wing company because we have about 10 or 12 sauces that no one else has.
Unpack that a little bit, because I do find that really fascinating, because when you think about people who are diehards for Chick-fil-A and Raising Cane's, of course, number one and number two, it's the sauce. It's often the sauce. Now, their variation on sauce is very small. They don't do multiple sauces. They have got like their one sauce. I got to tell you, Dave, I did a TikTok post the other day about the chicken performance that I mentioned before. Hundreds of comments on people specifically saying what they thought about Raising Cane's and Chick-fil-A sauce, and chiming in with other brands and saying, oh, but their sauce. So it's really fascinating to me because, I mean, I think you're really right here, which is to say the variation on chicken quality is limited. The variation on sauce is nearly unlimited. So tell me about your innovation process and sauce and how you ensure that Pluckers can rise above the competition.
So we have a process that a lot of people are always surprised by. Mark and Sean and I love to eat. I travel a lot and I love to cook, and I'll go to Asia or Europe and I'll try or see something that I enjoy and I'll bring it back. And we don't have a blind taste test of 100 people. It's I'll hand it to Mark and Sean and they'll take one bite and they'll just say yes or no. And that's worked for us for years and years and years. And I think occasionally you'll put it in the restaurant. We've had some losers over time, but the nice thing about the menu is that people want to try the new sauces. And at the same time, with the Chick-fil-A and Cane's situation, it's a good reminder that you don't need to have too many menu items and you just keep it simple. We've stuck with the core, probably 12 to 14 sauces on the menu, and then kind of played around with the other 6 over the years. And you also see concepts like Crumble, who, they're introducing something every week of a new flavor. So, I think the general consumer is interested in both quality, the thing they love, and then they're also interested in something like Crumble, where it's something different every week, and it just sort of depends on who the market is.
So are you guys doing LTOs with your sauces, or do you tend to introduce something permanently when you introduce it?
We typically introduce them permanently, but I think in the next year or so, we're going to be adding some additional sauces, and some locations might have certain sauces and others might have different ones. And I think that adds a little bit element of fun to go with our social media. But I mean, running a concept is difficult. It's hard to train staff on LTOs. It's hard to even produce sauces that you might only use for 2 months. I mean, it takes usually about 6 months to a year for every sauce we even come up with the idea of in my kitchen to hit the restaurant. And then we also sometimes look at the guest data. Spicy lemon pepper at our restaurant wasn't an initial sauce, but it's very popular. And because all the guests started saying, well, I love your medium sauce and I love your lemon pepper, can I get them combined? And so, we kind of feel our job is to listen as much as it is to innovate. And usually the best innovation is by being a good listener.
That's a great point. Now, you often get some of these big chains. Chipotle's done this a lot, where you have like the secret menu hacks that emerge on social media, and then they kind of embrace it. Do you listen on social media? I mean, it seems like social media has become such a great platform to, again, listen, like you say, but even get ideas, because maybe people are doing stuff with your sauces that you never even thought about doing. Are you listening a lot there?
We do. I mean, I'm oversee the marketing, the social media, and, the three of us read almost every comment card still that comes to the restaurant that, we have people help us out. But I mean, anything that deserves listening to, we want to listen. The social media, a lot of the brands, other wing brands, to be honest with you, have copied a lot of the sauces that we've had over the years. So it's become less of something that's unique. We try to do a little spin on everything that's a bit different, but I mean, it can be hard over time to stand out among the crowd. I think what really matters is just having consistent quality. I think people want to know the product they're getting, and ultimately it's value. I think people want to know they're getting a great value, and we have a lot of different innovative things within the restaurant to drive that value that I think people really appreciate.
Okay, come back around to value here in a second. But first, how many locations for Pluckers today?
We have 32 right now and 5 or 6 in stadiums that we don't count as part of those, but like University of Texas and Texas Rangers and places like that.
And primarily state of Texas, right?
All the state of Texas.
All in the state of Texas. So, I mean, slow and steady growth. One a year on average, 30 years, 32 locations, all really concentrated in one geography. Was that kind of your guys' idea when you started to grow?
Initially, it wasn't. We decided we wanted to do the franchise model, and we opened a franchise in Baton Rouge, and it was Mark and Sean's cousin, and he did it for 20 years and just recently decided he made enough money and he'd had enough and was ready to get out of the game. But mainly Texas, people don't realize the size of Texas. Texas is basically the same size going from maybe Atlanta to, Louisiana. So, when they're like, yeah, you've never gotten outside of the state of Texas, there's really not a need. I mean, Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio is about 30 million people right there. And we haven't even gotten to some of the smaller cities. But, someday we'll get outside of Texas, probably the next 3 to 5 years. But for us, we kind of like that we're a Texas brand. There's some pretty great Texas brands like Shiner Bock and Buc-ee's. I don't know if you're familiar with Buc-ee's in Texas, and Whataburger. And, so we're pretty proud of being a Texas brand as well.
So to that point, is there value in, because Wingstop's a Texas brand, but it's everywhere now. Is there value to being like, for Texans to be like, well, this one's ours. This, like, nobody else gets this. We get Pluckers versus, oh, that's the national chain. Do you try to lean into that with your marketing?
We do. In Austin, we try to remind people we're 3 University of Texas grads and we're an Austin-based brand. And in Texas, we more will say it's a Texas-based brand. They actually did a contest, or they wanted to see what were the biggest brands. They put together 64 different brands in a bracket, and every round they'd vote. And it ended up the final 4 brands in the state of Texas were us, Shiner Bock, Whataburger, and the State Fair of Texas. And I think as the owner, that made us really proud that people, we're very humble people, and to us, Pluckers is our everyday life. We don't think much about it, but to know that like people who come to Texas and live here feel that strongly about the brand meant a lot to us.
There's real brand equity in the state of Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with the brand HTO, but they even have the state of Texas in their logo. A lot of states, there's a handful of states you get this with, California, Texas, a few others. But, that the state itself kind of means something. And so to your point, there's a lot of opportunity there. And if you're not eager to be in every state, might as well just focus on that one. You mentioned value earlier. I really want to kind of come back around to that, because I know you guys are offering a value lunch deal now. That is a $12, I believe, price point. And $12 is like a fast food, burger at this point in time with inflation. So I want to drill into the last, call it 3-4 years, with inflation being what it's been. How have you guys been able to continue offering value and keep your prices low like that? What's been key to that?
Yeah, it's tough with the chicken wing market. When we started, they were 49 cents a pound the first week we opened, and 3 or 4 years ago, they got as high as $4 a pound. For us, we realized that there's a constraint on the consumers. Our guests are really feeling it. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. And, the one thing we wanted to make sure that they knew they could enjoy would be coming to Pluckers for lunch. And so we've reduced the portion slightly, but for the most part, for $12, and we also offer a nice tea for $2, you can get out of there for $14 in tax and tip, which we felt was something we've honestly never done. We've never reduced our prices in years, and we just felt like this was the time to do it. We've had a couple extra specials to the menu. We've decreased some beer pricing recently, and it's all in response to knowing the consumer's feeling pinched, and we don't want to lose our cover counts. We'd rather have people come in, and maybe we make a little bit less money on the meals right now, but at the same time, when business is booming, our guests never really mind that much if we raise the price 50 cents or $1. We're price conscious as the owners, but the reality is our guests generally don't care that much because they believe the food quality is so high. They appreciate the value. If we raise during the pandemic, we took the wings up. I think there were $2 extra per 10, and guests kept paying it because they knew it was something that they really wanted and they couldn't get at home. And no one really gave us a hard time about it because they knew we were working hard to do our best and give them a great product.
And how much do you look around at your competitors? Because again, there's so many competitors in the chicken space now. Even again, the fast food guys, everybody's doing something with chicken. I imagine you have to watch the space pretty closely to what everybody's doing. Obviously, everybody's buying, the same product, maybe not the same vendor, but largely the same product. And for the most part, this is a commodity that, they're paying the same price. But when you sort of set that bar for what value is at Pluckers compared to your competitors, how much are you watching what's going on around the space?
I think we've always had the attitude that we should be what our competitors are charging plus an extra dollar or two per entree. We feel that the value is there. We also have the Pluckers Club, which we have 300,000 people who are paying members of our club. They originally kind of joined for the loyalty and the benefits, but they end up enjoying a lot of the other aspects of the club. Like we allow our platinum members to jump the line so they don't have to wait in line for an hour. But they get a free appetizer or dessert every time they come in with 2 entree purchases. So we find other ways to drive value to the people who like our best guests. I think it's the first timers that we're really working on to make sure that people can afford it. And third-party delivery is really throwing a wrench, I believe, into the restaurant business as a whole. It's a tough decision to make when you want to introduce your product to people, because we recognize that fried food is not best served at your house by a third-party company that's taking responsibility for our food. We don't want that to be the first time you try Pluckers. So, as a whole, we look at the competitors' pricing, but ultimately we ask ourselves the question, is our product any better than a Wingstop or a Buffalo Wild Wings or your local wing chain delivered? That's a tougher question. We're really working on our takeout packaging, some things to get there. But in the dining room, we don't feel we really have anybody who comes close to the product quality that we offer.
And you said the only delivery for Pluckers is the third-party delivery, but you try to incentivize them to come in to get the food specifically so that they don't have a bad experience.
We didn't use DoorDash or Uber Eats or any of the third-party until the pandemic. And then we realized it was a necessity. And obviously, as consumers' habits have changed, we've become part of that. So, we're really trying to step up our game there. But there's nothing like, Pluckers is very experiential. We want people to vibe when they leave is I just felt like I had a time I would have had in college. I drank beer with my friends and I indulged in some food that's probably, not the healthiest, but I feel great about it. And the value was great and we had a great time. And you can't really get that with takeout. So price wise, it's a different deal when you're comparing yourself at home versus in the restaurant with the TVs and the servers and all that.
Well, that's an interesting point. That value isn't a price point. The value is an experience as much as anything. And to have alcohol, I took my son to a major fast food chain recently, walked out of there spending almost $20 for 2 meals, one of them being a kid's meal. And I was reflecting on how that same chain, when I had it in college, would have been less than $5 just for me. And, if I go to something like a Pluckers and I get a beer, if I can, depending on what I've had and I've enjoyed the experience and I've watched a game, whatever that price point is, I probably still feel a lot better about it than when I walked out of the major fast food chain where the experience was fairly nothing aside from, spending time with my son. I guess the point being is that you've created an experience that is value, right? How do you use those elements around you, like the alcohol program, like the TVs and all of that, to ensure that value is always there?
Well, we're also trying to create events that are unique to Pluckers. So for example, it started about 20 years ago. We do live team trivia where we have a live trivia host. It's not the geeks who drink, that's the same company doing the same trivia everywhere. And we have 8 rounds and it's really a great time. And so when you're sitting there for 2.5 hours playing trivia and having your beer and your wings with your friends or your family, it's so much more than just dining at a restaurant. It's entertainment. And, I think we recognize if you're watching a game for 3 hours in the restaurant too, the meal might only be 30 minutes of the 3 hours you're there. It's the other 2.5 hours that we want to excel on and being the best. And I think that's where people derive that value. Because like you said, you're right. You can spend $20 anywhere, but if you spend $20 for an hour versus $20 for an hour and a half and you got to enjoy something, I think they surmise that the value with Pluckers is different than other restaurants.
Okay, loyalty program. You mentioned that this is a paid loyalty program. Tell me about how that works.
So our guests pay $10 per every 6 months to join our gold program, and then they pay $15 per month to be a platinum member. And they have different levels of membership, and they get different perks. But we've modeled them for the most part after the airlines' mileage programs, and we want it to be that our best guests who get the most value, and the people who care the most about the brand get the most value, even if they don't eat with us as often. But those members really are evangelists to other guests. They bring in their friends and family, and it's points based. And so a lot of people will be like, yeah, not only do I want to introduce my friend to Pluckers, but hey, if they spend $20, I get 20 points and I get to spend that money on my friends and family.
And they don't balk at the fact that this has that initial cost.
The reality is for $10, they're saving, even if you visit the restaurant twice over the 6 months, you're saving $80. They get free meals on their birthdays, their kids' birthdays, their spouses' birthdays. There's so many, we have free meals once a month that we offer to them. I mean, the value is immense. Now, obviously, some people even these days are still, yes, they do balk at spending $10 on something that they don't truly understand. So really, more than anything, the people who understand it always purchase it. It's the one, our job is how do we teach them and educate them that, hey, we know that the value these days is tough, but here's an additional way you can come to Pluckers and get more value.
Okay, sorry for getting in the weeds so much here, but I'm curious because I love this because I think it's a really smart program. But obviously, most brands, almost all brands that have a loyalty program, probably wouldn't choose to charge for it. But I think this is really smart what you're doing. But I imagine there's a marketing component to it then too, because you have to recognize who are our VIPs, who are the people who are coming in here, and then I need to specifically sell it to them. Compared with if you sell this to everybody, if you're trying to push a loyalty program to everybody, and it's the first time they've come into a Pluckers and they hear $10 to be on the loyalty program, they might be like, no, I don't want to do that. That'd be crazy. But if you're somebody on your team is like, that guy's been in here every night this week, he's probably got to be on our loyalty program. How do you facilitate that?
It depends on the situation. We train the servers that, if it's somebody's birthday, they get a free birthday meal to be part of the club. That's worth $16. So why wouldn't you buy it for $10 to get involved in the club? But ultimately, you're right. I mean, we want to be able to market to our best guests. We want to be able to create things that are only accessible to them. So, for example, for years, we had Mother's and Father's Day. All moms and fathers got a free meal. But over time, we realized we really should only condition that for the people who are paying members who have buy-in to our brand, who are going to bring their friends and family. So now it's Mother's Day and Father's Day are Pluckers Club members only. We also have like a Pluckers Club member day that we celebrate on, we call it Anti-Valentine's Day every year, where we do dollar wings and usually $1 pints of beer. And just to celebrate the members themselves. And we announce who's the leading member. I mean, most years the leading member spends anywhere between $12,000 and $18,000 a year at Pluckers. And, there's a sense of pride in that, being somebody who spends $1,000 and gets on the wall, or $2,500 and gets your name on a table, or being, one of the top 20 Pluckers customers that we have.
That's incredible. And you said 300,000 members?
Yes.
I'm not great at math, but I think that's 10,000 per location, give or take. I imagine if you ran that number for a lot of the major chains, you're not even coming close to that. So, tell me a little bit more about the marketing of it. I mean, is it just on your website? It's in your restaurants? How do they find out about all these benefits?
We have Pluckers TV, which in our restaurants, a third of the TVs have our own television that we curate. And there's a lot of information about the Pluckers Club there. We hand them a brochure. We train the servers. It's on the website. But ultimately what really sells it is your buddy next to you who's also a member is like, you should join this. It's a great idea. So a lot of the people kind of come in the restaurant just really needing a little bit of a push to join. But we don't, our attrition rate is maybe 1%. Like, everybody sees the value in it. They help us sell more Pluckers Club memberships to their friends, and it's positive for everybody. And for us, the marketing aspect of it's nice, but I think it's more the idea that like we are there for them during the most important parts of their life. Whether it's a birthday with their family members, or it's Mother's Day or Father's Day, we want them spending those times with us. And so we don't mind. I think a lot of restaurants would think it's crazy to give a free meal as many times a year as we do. But we believe to bring in that one person probably brings in 3 or 4 family members, and it's something that they remember forever.
Yeah, totally. No, it's fascinating. I love that. Okay, let's come back around to the economy today, because we're just back. I was at the Restaurant Leadership Conference last week in Arizona that we host. I've been to a number of events in the last 6 months, and uncertainty is kind of the name of the game right now. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Are we going into a recession or are we not? Will these tariffs hurt me or will they not? And I'm curious from your perspective as the co-founder, one of the partners behind a 32-unit restaurant chain, been around for a long time, really planted its flag in quality chicken. How do you sort of fortify your company in a time like this? I mean, how closely are you watching supply chains, especially because I imagine with so many competitors and with quality being so key to what you guys do, I imagine the tariffs could be something that's pretty scary to somebody like you.
I think the tariffs should be scary to everybody. And I'm not trying to say that from a political slant at all. I think, like you said, it creates uncertainty. And for our guests to have uncertainty of like, will they have their job tomorrow isn't great. I think for us to build more restaurants to not know what the interest rates could be or how much the building cost could be isn't great. I think for the people who work for us, it's not great to know, like we want to grow. I mean, our goal is to open as many restaurants as we can. And if the environment isn't great, it's tough to be adding more labor to our workforce. But I mean, ultimately the guests, I think the reason we've gone to these cheaper prices the last couple months has been, we want to make sure they understand that we understand because, it's pinching everybody. And I think once that we get to a more certain market, I think the restaurant business as a whole will be more settled. I think it'll be more encouraging for guests to spend more money. And I think it'll be more encouraging for restaurateurs to build more restaurants.
I think that we're going to be hearing about value more. I mean, we were hearing a lot about value last year. I think that's why you see the success of Chili's. A few different reasons, but they leaned into value. I suspect value 2025, value will be the word of the year in the restaurant industry because of if there's one thing that wins through thick and thin, through uncertainty and certainty, it's value. You always know that people love value. So I imagine you guys are really doubling down on that. Yeah,
I think you have to realize what your guest determines is value. I mean, for some places it might be convenience and getting in and out quickly. And there's people who are great at that. For us, it's more the experience. And like I said, value for takeout meal versus value for a dining room is completely different. So we're trying to assess both and determine moving forward what's best for us. But I mean, value can mean so many different things to different people. But ultimately, if they walk out with a smile and they had an experience, we feel pretty good about it.
All right, Dave, last question for you. Tell us what's next for Pluckers, for anybody outside of Texas especially who's curious what this brand is going to do next. What's on the docket?
Well, we're going to stay in Texas probably for the next couple of years, trying to add 4 to 6 stores a year at this point. And really the main thing is, like all restaurants, it's about the people. We are trying to increase the number of employees we have, but we're really looking for high quality management. Our area managers make $200,000 to $400,000 a year. So we're getting a lot of people who are interested from like C-level positions in restaurant companies that want to be area managers here. Our general managers make on average $150,000 a year. So, I mean, ultimately, it's a big part of this will be, are we able to sell our brand, especially if we go out of state, to a potential employee who recognizes this is an opportunity for a job I can have that's unlike anywhere else? And then do we deliver on that opportunity? Going to an Atlanta or Chicago or LA, I don't think would be problematic from the standpoint of the guests are going to come to Pluckers. I think the question to us is, how do we still have that same quality with somebody who lives in LA who's maybe trained at Pluckers for a couple of years and has moved to Austin or Dallas to learn, or do we need to move somebody from Austin or Dallas out to LA? It's a tough question. And, for us, having all the major cities within 3-4 hours of each other is very nice. That is one of the advantages of being in Texas.
Good problem to have, wondering about all these questions. I think you guys are well positioned. So Dave Paul, co-founder of Pluckers Wing Bar, thanks for joining me today.
All right, thanks a lot.
That was my interview with Pluckers Wing Bar co-founder Dave Paul. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 6 takeaways. My first takeaway is that working in your restaurants is the perfect opportunity for market research. Dave and his co-founders worked tirelessly to get this concept off the ground in the early years. They started it right after they graduated from college. They didn't really know what they were doing, but they wanted to make it work. So they served as delivery drivers. They worked behind the counter. They busted their butts to get this thing, turn this thing into a success. And as Dave pointed out, the best part of that is they understood very, very intensely how their business operated, what their customers wanted, and what they should do to grow the thing. It's a good reminder that no matter what position you serve in the restaurant, the best way to understand the inner workings of the restaurant is actually working in the restaurant. Work every position because you will know very, very well what your employees want, what your customers want, and what's a better way to run your business. My second takeaway is that chicken is not the key differentiator in the chicken category. I am just back from National Restaurant Association show, in case you couldn't tell by my voice. And I had this conversation a lot of times, which is, chicken, your competitor could go out and buy the same chicken product you're buying. What sets you apart isn't necessarily the quality of the chicken or the type of cut of chicken. What sets you apart usually is your sauces. And that's the case at Pluckers. Dave, who is in charge of flavor innovation and who travels a lot to get ideas for what those flavors should be, he said, we're not really a chicken company, we're a sauce company, because the flavors that they have in their sauces and how their employees can toss those wings in the sauce is the flavor differentiation and sets Pluckers apart from Wingstop and other wings chains. It is we're going to see a lot of innovation in sauces and dips. I think we already have. And because a lot of people seem to be realizing this, that if you want to stand out in the chicken category, you need a distinct flavor. You can get that in spices or you can get that in sauces. So keep that in mind if you're serving chicken. The best way to stand out is through your sauce innovation. My third takeaway is that customers simultaneously want simplicity and adventure. You know, you might think adventure requires complexity, but it's not necessarily the case. You know, Dave talked about the fact that simple menus like, for example, Raising Cane's have helped that concept and others really become massive successes. Wingstop's another one. They do what they do best and they really stick to it. But simultaneously, customers want a variety of flavors. They want an adventure in their experience. And you can provide that to them as well. You have to find a balance for those two things. Don't let your menu get too complex, but remember that variety and diversification of the menu can be what helps you stand out. To my previous point on the fact that sauces are often what helps you to differentiate. At Pluckers, they want to provide quality. They double down on the quality of what they're providing, but they're also trying new things here and there because, as Dave pointed out, the customer wants that to be brought along on that adventure, on that experience. So try to keep it simple, but try to take some chances and try new things in order to stand out for your customer. My fourth takeaway is that one of the best R&D strategies is listening to your guests. Your guest is going to know best what they want. But I love the example that Dave provided where he said guests were frequently asking for two different sauce flavors combined. They liked the taste of both, but they liked them better when they were combined. And so Pluckers came out with the spicy lemon pepper sauce, which took that into account. They listened to their guests and they made that new sauce based on what their guests loved. At the restaurant show that I just came back from, there was another example of this. Coca-Cola, they're releasing a Sprite with tea product. And they came across that pairing by seeing it on social media. People all over social media were adding tea to their Sprite, kind of like an Arnold Palmer. And Coke said, oh, well, let's just give it to them. Let's bottle it and can it and give it to them. And they did. The point is you need to listen to your guests to find out what they like and prefer in order to give them what they want. Don't just, put a chef in the test kitchen and call it a day. Listen to your guests. My fifth takeaway is that your value offerings should accommodate both new and loyal guests. So the one of the big headlines here in this conversation was that Pluckers was discounting their lunch deal. They were offering this lunch deal for $12, which was a 20% reduction on price. And at a time right now where it seems like everybody's taking price, where the economy is still pretty brutal, inflation's still high, menu prices continue to go up, Pluckers made that decision to reduce their price on that lunch deal. But that's the point of it here is that it's a lunch deal. And Dave said that, they wanted to do this because they want to still appeal to new guests. Obviously, everybody's trying to get traffic into the restaurants, and new trial from guests is critical in then converting them to loyal guests, obviously is what you ultimately want. But in order to bring new guests in, that value is key. And often for the new guest, that value is going to be that price point. So think about the discount or think about the value for that new guest, and maybe it's price affiliated. But Dave was careful to point out that they also have value offerings for their loyal guests, and that's generally through their loyalty program. The loyalty program really impresses me. They have 300,000 members in their loyalty program, and it comes with a monthly fee. They've got the $10 gold level and $15 premium level. But Dave said, if you come with any frequency, you pay it off very quickly. But the loyalty members find value through free entrees, free appetizers, skipping the line. There's all these perks to being a member that provide value. And so Pluckers is trying to play both sides of the field here. They want to provide value to the new guest, generally through a price point. They want to provide value to the loyalty guest, generally through perks in their loyalty program. And by doing both of those things, everybody can be happy and find the value that they're looking for. My sixth and final takeaway is that in-restaurant experiences count toward the value equation. So again, going back to this value discussion, everybody wants to create value. Your dine-in experience is a part of the value equation, whether it's the music you're playing or in Pluckers' case, the TVs that they have, the games that they're playing. alcohol service. At Pluckers, they do trivia. All of these things Dave pointed out, they create this fun experience and environment that guests want to be a part of. They also have programming on their TVs dedicated to Pluckers. He said they create content on the TVs, and that's how they market the loyalty program. They market all of these things that they're doing for the customer. And I love that idea because, listen, we all see the pendulum swinging coming back around to guests wanting to be in restaurants, having experiences, having hospitality. They still want value. They still want convenience, but they're craving an experience, a person-driven experience. And the experience that you create within your dining room is going to make them feel value, make them want to be a part of whatever you're doing with loyalty, and make them come back for more. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again and talk to you next week.
Consumer habits are changing fast. Really captures real-time behavior insights by polling targeted audiences on social media, where they show up as their most authentic selves. Get the clarity you need to drive more foot traffic and marketing buzz. Visit askbarilli.com. That's AskBrilli.com to learn more.